Good morning. Hey, Nick Collier here. It's a Sunday morning, late March, crisp, bright, sunny day out here in the forest at 3,000 feet in Nevada City, California. When Mona visited, we kind of sketched up a general design of what she wanted, and you can see that we've got a series of prong heads. And I'll show you what that probably is going to look like, although this is the much more simplified version. A series of prongs that the stone will fit in. This goes to another stone, of course. And then when we set the stone, these little prongs will fold over the stone and hold it in place. And then, of course, this part here is the ring design, if you're looking directly down onto the stone. So probably the first thing we want to do is we're going to build the back of the prong head. And that'll be, in this case, because this stone is an oval, it'll be an oval about 3/4 the size of that prong, or of that stone itself. So let's get some material and get started. We found a piece of rectangular stock in 14 karat gold. So now it's probably hard as a rock. Yes, of course it is. It was rolled at one point. I can't remember when. And when it rolls, the metal gets really stiff. So what we have to do is take it over to the torch and anneal it to allow the metal to relax a little bit. So let's go over to the torch. So we'll now take the torch and heat this metal up. I'm going to turn the light out so you can see this thing heat up. Well, let's just start it heating first, and then you'll be able to see the temperature we want to get to. There we go. So I'm just kind of taking it to a dull red, which is about, I don't know, 1100 degrees or so. And what that's doing is it's just relaxing the molecules in the gold, or it's actually not relaxing the molecules in the gold, because those molecules are very relaxed. It's actually relaxing the molecules in the alloy in the gold, because of course it's 14 karat gold, which means that it's almost half alloys. So we got that heated up. Let's turn that light back on. You can see that. Put it in the water, chill it out a little bit, and we've got fairly relaxed gold. Okay, and it also, at this point, isn't too pretty anymore either, but that comes later. We're going to take a pair of round needle nose pliers and make our first bend. And now that the metal is relaxed, it'll bend fairly easy. So we need to make a bend that's going to go on the inside edge of that stone. So we're looking at probably about halfway down the pliers. We'll get a nice even half circle somewhere right in there. Looks pretty good. Now we can take a flat pair of needle nose pliers and pretty much just kind of bend that part in a little bit, just because it's got, it wants to follow the contour of the stone. So in order to do that, we need to let's take a second pair of flat nose. And we just kind of bend everybody in a little bit. There we go. And that looks pretty good. So now we're just guessing here, and that's part of the process, is guesswork. We're just going to grab it right about there. And at this point we can take and bend this edge out of the way. Maybe we can. Just kind of bend it down so that this loop here is completely out of the way. Then grab it again with the pliers once again, and I'd say about right there, and then bend that around. So now we've ended up with a complete half circle, or circle. And we're going to pick up that telephone. Okay, so while that phone call was happening, I ended up cutting the tip of this off, filing down the front the contacting surfaces to get those all squared up, and then bringing them back in together so that they're nice and even. Now we can take it over to the welding bench and go ahead and weld up that little joint there, and then we can come back in, and you notice how it's just kind of a little bit odd, a little bit oblong sort of thing. We can come back in and straighten up that oblongness until it fits the stone better. So we're going to go over to the welding bench. Be back. We've got our little piece on the third hand. We're going to take just a little bit of flux. Let's see, do we have any flux? Yes, we do. Put just a little bit of flux on the contacting surface there. And flux basically, if you don't already know, is kind of a high temperature soap. Just about the time the solder gets ready to melt, the flux scrubs the metal by, we're talking 800-900 degrees here. Now I'm going to take a piece of gold solder, and this is hard solder, and cut off just the smallest piece of, where is it at there? Well, that might be a little too small. Let's cut off something just a little bit bigger. That probably will do the trick. Can you see that? Yeah. We got one little snippet there. And if we take and pick that up, we can drop it right on top. Of course, not with my shaky hands, but we will snag it back up again, drop it right on top, maneuver it into place, and we're ready to go. Fire up the torch, and then just heat the whole mess up very slowly, because what happens with the flux is if you heat it too fast, the flux boils, and it'll boil that little piece right off the top there. But as it is, we didn't do that. So then we're just bringing it up to temperature, and we're looking at probably 1100 degrees or so to get that solder to melt. Oops, it melted, but if there's a little bit of a gap there, that's not good. Okay, let's see if we can get something to bring that gap in. So we're just going to grab it out at both ends, like that. Put just the slightest bit of pressure on it. And hope and pray that the whole thing just kind of pulls right in nice and smoothly. There it goes. Very sweet. Okay, we're back. And this part of it's going to be fairly close work, so we're going to bring you in close, because what I have to do is I have to get the stone to fit the receiver. And if you'll look at it, you will see that the stone doesn't actually fit. I'm going to bring you over just a little bit further, like right there. The gold receiver kind of sits kind of cattywampus. So we've got to come in and we have to file off the inside edge just a bit to get the whole thing to kind of fit a little bit better. I don't know if you can see that, but there's just a little bit of a chamfer on that edge right there, and then we'll just turn it around and do it on this edge here. Same thing. just a little bit, and that's going to help that stone sit in there just a little bit smoother. You can see how now it kind of wants to seep in right into that space. Now what I notice is that the walls of the bezel, you might say it's a bezel, at this point it is, are a little bit too straight for a rounded stone. So what I need to do is I need to kind of bring those walls out a little bit, and pretty much what we have to do is muscle them. Let's see if we can find a pair of pliers that are going to do this. And we just grab it with the pliers from both sides, squeeze it, and you can see it just kind of created just a bit of an arch there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's do the other side just a little bit. Yeah, much better. And just file the inside edge of our bezel. And as it is with jewelry work, everything is a little bit hard to handle because it's so small, especially with my big fingers. But there's a way to do it. You just kind of concentrate a little bit. All right, we've got just a bit of a, can you see that? And all of this needs to be done before you put the prongs on, because once the prongs are on, you can't really get to this that well. Gold is fairly soft material, and it doesn't mind being bent and banged and hammered and pounded and filed and all of that stuff we're going to be doing here. You can see we've got one part of the bezel filed, and as I don't know if you can see it or not, but as we file, what we're doing is squaring up the edges. And again, all of this has to happen before the prongs are on, because the prongs are going to be in the way and you aren't going to be able to get this nice filed edge. Okay. So we've got the whole perimeter somewhat polished. I mean, it's not perfect polished, but it's filed down and all the rough spots are done. Now what I do is put it on the file flat, and then it just go back and forth. And of course, I'm going to do it upside down because it works better that way. So you won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to kind of hear it, and you'll be able to see the results. See how it's starting to kind of square up that edge real nicely. And once again, you know, this has to be done before the prongs are in, or else you can't get to it. So now what I'm doing is coming in, you can see I've got the flat straightened out, and I've got the bottom straightened out. I mean, I've got the side straightened out, but there's a ridge right around this edge that's still a little bit rough. So I'm just kind of coming around and chamfering that edge just a little bit so we can see that we've got a nice, smooth completion. Now, that looks pretty good. And I would say we are pretty well ready. Let me just get this one little lump right here kind of worked out. Being the perfectionist that I am. And also, if you look at it, now we have about $5, maybe even $10 worth of gold kind of piled up in the gold reject pile. Now, that done, I like to come in and pre-polish these edges and get a nice sheen on them so that when I put the prongs on, I don't have a whole lot of cleanup to do. So let's go in the buffing room and do a quick pre-polish. So we're going to hand hold this because it's insanely hard to figure out a tripod in here, and just kind of run it up against the buffing wheel to get ourselves a nice polish on that. And burn our fingertips. Alright, so we gave you kind of a general idea. I'm going to go ahead and finish this with both hands. I don't know if this is going to be clear enough, but if you look at it now that we've hit it on the buffer, everything is, all of the rough edges of the file marks have smoothed out. And we've got the top polished and the side polished, but we didn't polish the bottom. And I know you wonder why. Well, how come you didn't polish the bottom? Because once we put the prongs on, we're going to have to come back and file this bottom to match up to the prongs to get a nice clean finish. And it's no point in filing the bottom. Plus, this gives us an easy way to know which way the prongs are going to go. So you set it down, and if you file both sides, then you'd have to go in real close and try to figure out which side. So the way we start this is go ahead. First I want to see how high that stone is. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we can bend at about, looks like about 3/8 we can bend these. So there's one. And we want to cut that. So now we have these cute little pieces, and they're going to want to kind of go right in here. And the reason why I have a loop here, and let me back up just a little bit because we need to kind of get a little bit better view. The reason why I have a loop here is because the most difficult part of welding prongs onto a base like this is you weld one set of prongs, or one prong, and then when you go to weld the second prong, the first prong falls over. And so when I have the loop like this, you weld one prong right here, and then when you come back around to weld the other prong, the first prong holds the second prong. So I'm going to come in and square up each of the bottoms of these prongs. And they're pretty simple. And this one's going to be a bit of a fight. Let's just go ahead and cut the tips off there. Yeah, it'll make it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to come up against, and let me get a pair of tweezers, and I will hold this in place. I want to come up against the bezel, in a sense it's a bezel, and visualize this sitting there ready to go against it. But the problem is, I don't know if you can see it or not, but the gap between the prong wire and the bezel is pretty wide. So there needs to be a little bit of a reduction in the material right in there in order to get this to sit flush up against the metal. So the way we do that is we kind of come in just at a bit of an angle and just flatten out one edge like that. Okay, let's flatten out another edge. Something like that. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's going to be a nice bit. Okay, so let's do that to the other 4. And while we'll do that, we'll give you a break. Go get a cup of coffee or something. Okay, we've got everybody filed and ready to go over to the welding bench. And there's 3, 4, and the so I don't know if you noticed, but there's this little pile of gold right here, and it looks like it's getting more and more substantial. We're probably looking at $15 worth of gold right now, just from the scraps and filings, just from this one little part of the project. So that's kind of, that goes in the scrap bin eventually and gets melted down or cashed in or whatever it is that I do with it. Okay, we're going to go over to the welding table.